This is Dan McGowan. Welcome to the greatest clips so far of the podcast, Just Pure Laughs. I thought you might enjoy some highlights of some of our shows so far. You can always subscribe, and you can find us on YouTube, on Spotify, and other places where great podcasts can be found. So here we go with greatest hits so far of Just Pure Laughs. Let's start with Michelle Van Dusen.
I know 5 jokes, and I can tell these 5 jokes. Really, they were insults that my sister sent to me. You know, she would just call me up every day. She's like, hey, you know, who do you call if your kids get sick? Ha, 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 click. You know, like that's what I was dealing with, was these insults about homeschooling my children. I'm like, I also have your son here. Anyway, so I took those 5 jokes, went up to Wisconsin to do a, 5-minute set or whatever it was. 3-minute set, whatever it was, and in front of Carolyn Ray.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was because there was that whole talent search kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I started. I was like third to last in line, and the guy in front of me, right before he does his audition, the producer there says, okay, guys, I just want you to know that Carolyn has to leave now, so we're just going to record the rest of you. And I look at him like, there's 3 of us in line, and you're going to record 3 of us for her? She can't wait another extra 10 minutes for us to get through this? Yeah, and it was a small area, so she actually had to pass me, going through kind of that, like, and you're in a very crowded place. It's like, excuse me, like that kind of like anyway.
Yeah.
So I can say I bumped into Carolyn Ray. Yeah, at a comedy club. I just kind of bumped into her. No, she bumped into me. She's very tall. I'm very short. She basically walked right over me to get out. That's what it was. So that was my start. Baby blues and just being walked all over by Carolyn Ray.
Here's McNair Wilson.
When I got to Imagineering, first as a consultant, I had a street theater company that was doing 30 Renaissance festivals a year. And my partner, Herb Hansen, and I, and we were invited to be at Italy, Epcot, for 3 months, for 3 months of Epcot, 10 shows a day. And a week after Epcot opened, it was so popular among cast members and guests. They said, do you have any more people? We said, look, we do 30 Renaissance festivals a year. And during the height of the season, late summer, early fall, we do 5 or 6 festivals simultaneously, which is 6 or 8 or 10 people in each of those cities. So yeah, we've got more people. So by Thanksgiving, having opened October 2nd at Epcot, by Thanksgiving, we added a troupe to the United Kingdom, doing 12 shows a day in each of those countries. And by the summer of 85, we were doing 45 shows throughout Epcot in 5 different places. And the Imagineers, when they found out we were not a Disney group, and they suspected that because of our sarcasm and our touching guests and all these non-Disney things.
Now let's enjoy Scott Wood. Hi, Scott.
Hey, doing great, Dan. Thanks. And we did it. I hope the audience can hear me. I'm not computer savvy. My son says my laptop has Windows. I bought curtains.
For those of you who, just to have everybody in the know, we're doing this a couple of days before Christmas. So, Scott, I'm sure you're still busy wrapping presents and rushing to the store to buy gifts. I have no idea what you do at this time of the year, but that's when we're recording this. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with me. This is great.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, 'tis the season. We have a weird Santa Claus at our mall. He wanted to sit on my lap.
Yeah, I've been telling audiences that this time of the year always reminds me of that moment when Santa Claus sat me down and told me the truth about my parents. So it was. It's always good to have that going on at the holidays.
Absolutely. When I was a child, I was 5 years old. My dad he got up on our roof, fired off his shotgun, came inside and told us Santa Claus committed suicide.
Oh my gosh! Merry Christmas! Oh, wow. Wow, that sounds like a very exciting childhood you had there.
Oh, very exciting, very exciting. One year for Christmas, all they gave me was batteries, toys not included.
Great. That's great. Here comes Candy Ann.
I remember watching a comedian at like the Improv or the Comedy Store, and then we were at home watching Netflix one night, and I looked at my husband and we were watching the Hollywood Improv's birthday party.
Uh-huh.
And I remember looking at him going, I could do that. And he was like, what? And I was like, I'm serious. Like, I could do that. And he goes, so do it. And I was like, do not dare me.
I love that. So
there's
do
no
it.
takebacks.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think shortly after that, I got back into doing stand-up. We had moved up here to Reading, so the comedy scene was not quite as prevalent as it is in LA.
How about non-existent?
But, you know, the few of us that were up here were
Yeah.
meeting together and really found such an amazing group of friends within our comedy scene that we have up here. And I think that's really what's driven me to stay with it. I said my goal is I want to write a 15-minute set. That's it. That was my goal. I just wanted to do 15 minutes. I wanted it to be a party trick.
Wow.
You know, that I could just like kind of roll into at any point. Like wanted to have a hobby, wanted it to be fun. I think I'm now at 20 and hoping to get to 30 by the end of this year.
So you have far surpassed your goal.
I have far surpassed
Yeah.
what I set out to do. Just as making it something to do for fun.
Here's the first of two magicians I've had on the show. Let's enjoy Brian Gillis.
So we literally call this the house that magic built. And that's exactly what it is. My wife and I have kind of a strict rule where the magic pays for the magic. And I consult for other magicians all over. And just right here off in this little farm in Red Bluff, a lot of illusions you might have seen on TV have come out of this little workshop. So
Really? So you've actually worked as a consultant for other magicians?
Yeah. Currently I've got roughly, I'd say 5 or 6 usual guys that I work with that keep coming back to me. Apparently they like me. And we collaborate on ideas and I try to bring those ideas to life, and they seem to like it. So
now, are these tricks something that if somebody, I'm assuming they pay you for your effort, and if they do, then do they own that, or can you do that trick as well?
You know, it kind of varies. You know, in the world of magic, there's a lot of big egos and there's a lot of creativity, and a lot of the stuff is pretty open game. None of it's real new ideas. There's little pieces here and there that might be new. And unless a client says, hey, you know, let's keep this exclusive, then a lot of times I won't delve into it with other clients. Just kind of keeping the exclusivity, you know, with the client. So, yeah.
Well, I would think that working in that, it's kind of like with stand-up, unfortunately, there are comedians who will steal jokes from other comedians, and it's really, really difficult to curtail that, until you hear it. And then when they come off stage, hey, buddy, that's my joke. And here's another magician friend of mine, Ron Giesek. Do you come from an entertainment background?
Well, there's a lot of latent musicianship in my family, and I am actually a musician first. I play 9 instruments and I do sing. In a sense, I'm a little bit of a standout or an outlier in that regard.
You seem like a very entertaining guy when I've seen you, that you really, capture your time on the stage. You own the stage, and that's always great for any kind of performer to be able to do. Yeah, but then you got to have those big abracadabra kind of words that, prove you're a magician, right?
Well, there's, of course, that, but I do love big words, and prestidigitation is one of the words that will show up in my show, along with artifice, ruse, and subterfuge.
Yeah, you're way over my head right now, but I do like using those words in Scrabble, which never happened. So, yeah. And now we have Jeffrey Taylor.
Well, I was an actor for a long time, which I did like it away from me. And when I moved back to the Reading area just a couple of years ago, I noticed that there was a large theater community. So I immediately jumped back into doing theater as an actor. But then I also went back to school and I finished my degree, which I was able to do in 1 year. And what I found very quickly was that trying to act and hit the rehearsal schedules and performance schedules while also in school was a real problem.
Mm.
And so that was when I saw that there was a class that you were teaching that was all about stand-up comedy. And I thought, hey, I have this theater experience. I know how to get up on stage. And if I have a joke that doesn't land, I know how to keep going. So why don't I put my hat in the ring for that? And I did. I did not realize that we would end up doing shows and have all these open mics. I thought I was just going to take a 6-week class and, hey, I'll do some stand-up comedy, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember back the first time you got up on a stage other than the class, and I want to say it was for Telly's. Does that sound right?
No, it was actually for Firestone or Firehouse in Anderson.
Yeah, down in Anderson. Right,
I only had 3 minutes of material, but we had just had the class, and you were all like, "Hey, just come and do an open mic," and I said, "Sure, of course I will."
And now here's Gordon Douglas. Have you always been a funny guy, Gordon? Is that how you've always been?
I would say since junior high school, I moved from right outside South Philly to classic South Philly, where they made the Rocky movies, out into the suburbs. A journey of only 17 miles, but it was a world apart. But as a very quiet, shy kid that didn't fit in a new school, it was comedy that got me through. And in those days, they didn't call me funny. It was weird, odd, strange. but trying to make people laugh in the playground or in the class, it was something that it gave me an identity. And I liked the fact that when I could say or do something, people would laugh. I like that feeling. And sometimes when you get that feeling, you go overboard. You don't know where to draw the line. But so that was always part of what I wanted, and maybe sometimes too much because of that lack of self-esteem. I kind of maybe overcompensated at a time, but it did become a driving force for me through high school and college age.
Now, let me ask you, I know for myself, there were times, probably more than I want to even admit or remember, that I got in trouble for being the funny kid. You know, did that ever happen to you?
Oh, yes. I had my special seat next to the principal or the teacher in many a classroom.
That's great. That's great. Here's Patrick Smith. So what went wrong with that set? Tell us.
Probably the context. It was at my own birthday party, so it's hard to, this is one of the jokes I say is, it's hard to tell if the crowd response is sincere when it's your own birthday party. So, I don't know.
Yeah, as opposed to like pity laughs.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, the guy's getting older. You know, we don't want him to have a stroke. Let's just laugh.
I didn't bring a present, so I'm just going to laugh at his joke.
That's good. That's good. That's funny. But let me ask you a question that maybe has changed over the past year or so. How do you approach, like, what's your writing format? How do you go about writing a joke and creating a joke? What's your process for that?
I'm a verbal processor and I live alone. So I literally, it probably sounds crazy, but I just mumble. I mumble ideas out loud.
Yeah.
And when I find something that I think is worth exploring, I'll start to just kind of mumble it over and over again. And I literally just perform stuff by myself, and then I judge the performance. And if it is worth developing, in my opinion, I'll develop it. And I actually won't even write anything on paper until probably the day before I perform, because I'm just like getting it organized. Like I've already memorized these, 6 or 7 jokes, but I'm just kind of, I'll sort of lay them out, try to find if there's a segue that makes sense. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But mostly it's verbal processing. And then I will give it to the audience, and then I'll test it on my friends. And so I've learned to tell the difference between like somebody who's actually laughing at what I said and somebody who's giving me like a pity laugh.
Yeah.
Like, that's so interesting, Patrick.
That's going to be really funny someday. Yeah. Here's Stacy Peterson. You were raised by hippie parents. You starred in the world's worst horror film, and you love speaking at events because hotels come with housekeeping. How did you get started with everything you're doing? You do all this keynote speaking for events. You are an actor. I'm assuming you perform comedy, stand up sometimes, and so talk about all that. Let's dive into who Stacy is.
Sure. Well, so I have a degree in theater. So I'm a trained actor, and I did stage, film, commercial, television. And then, I've been married twice. And with my first husband, I quit acting. He wasn't a fan of that. So I didn't act for 15 years, but I did a lot of writing scripts and stuff for other people, and they came out funny. So after a divorce with him, I got back into acting and started performing my own script, and I never heard of anything called stand-up comedy. I was 35.
What do you mean you'd never heard of stand-up comedy?
Never.
So you weren't aware of people like, I don't know, Phyllis Diller or Don Rickles or any of these great stand-ups? Really?
Nope, I wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and it was very rural, and we had no arts whatsoever, and half the time our TV didn't pick up anything.
Yeah.
So people ask me about music or movies or sitcoms in the 80s, and I have no idea what they're talking about.
Wow.
So
now, does this kind of stem from, did you grow up in a commune when you say with hippie parents? Were you?
No, but my parents had been in communes before.
Yeah. Wow. So your home life growing up, you just didn't have television. You were out in the boonies. Is that kind of what you said? And
yeah, just living off the land, Dan.
Wow. And so what changed when you were you said 35 is when you first heard about stand-up?
Yeah, well, what happened was I performed one of those monologues, is what I thought it was, that I'd written. And then somebody from the church saw it and asked me if I wanted to perform for the women's retreat that fall. And so I did what I thought was a one-woman show. I did an hour. I had no idea it was comedy. So after that, people were like, your stand-up comedy's so funny. And then I got hired to do somebody's Christmas party off that event. And I was like, what is this thing called stand-up?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That is so fascinating to me. And finally, here's Morty Stein.
Well, I kind of got started probably by accident. Stand-up was something that I never really was pursuing or looking into. Because of my day job, I used to do a lot of public speaking. So I would get booked to speak at church groups and civic groups and service organizations like Rotary and Kiwanis from my day job. I worked 35 years as a funeral director.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So I would get booked to do public speaking at these organizations to talk about pre-planning and veteran services and some of the other benefits that people that don't know that are available to them. Some of the stories got really funny because some of the things that happen in this business were really actually funny. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that, but yeah, some things in this business can be a little bit funny, sometimes by accident. But anyway, as I was writing the book and I found that some of these stories were really funny, I had a friend of mine that I knew from the Chamber of Commerce that owned a comedy club. And I asked him if he had an open mic night so I can read some of these stories and tell some of these stories. But as I was watching a lot of these comedians, I was like, I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm funnier than that guy.
Yeah. The path of a comedian. Yeah, I'm as good as you. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this collection of greatest moments so far on the Just Pure Laughs Clean Comedy Podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever podcasts can be found and join us for future episodes on Just Pure Laughs. This is Dan McGowan. Have a funny day.